All right, let's jump right into this explainer and untangle the thousands of years of fictional history behind one of Marvel's absolute most tragic heroes. We are looking at the legacy of the Black Knight today. And let me tell you, it's a legacy completely defined by magic, madness, and a very bloody, very heavy sword.
So, who exactly is the Marvel Universe's Black Knight? Now, a lot of you probably recognize Kit Harington playing Dane Whitman from the MCU film Eternals, right? But the lore goes infinitely deeper than that brief on-screen appearance. We're talking about a character lineage that literally stretches from the shadowy corners of the Dark Ages all the way into the distant future. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to cover the Black Knight identity, the curse of the Ebony Blade, a blood-stained lineage, the shift from villain to Avenger, and finally, the future of the mantle. All right, Section 1, the Black Knight identity, a legacy born in 1955. Long before most modern heroes even existed, we actually start our journey way back during the Silver Age of comics. Created by Stan Lee and Joe Manelli in May of 1955, the very first Black Knight debuted as a medieval warrior in the days of Atlas Comics, which, if you didn't know, was the 1950s precursor to Marvel. It's kind of fascinating, right? This character began not as your typical tights and capes superhero, but as an adventure comic set squarely in the 6th century, serving at the court of King Arthur. So he was a knight of Camelot long before he was ever an Avenger. Moving on to Section 2, Curse of the Ebony Blade, a weapon of blood. Now, the core conflict of this entire legacy revolves around one thing, the sword itself. At the center of it all is the Ebony Blade. This is a massively powerful, enchanted sword carved right out of a meteorite by the wizard Merlin for the very first Black Knight. But here's the catch. The Ebony Blade isn't just a sharp piece of metal. It was afflicted with a dark blood curse after being repeatedly used for violence. Basically, every single enemy struck down added another heavy layer of darkness to the blade. So you might be wondering, why on earth would anyone risk wielding something so dangerous? Well, because it makes you practically a god. I mean, it's completely indestructible. It slices through almost any physical substance, except for super strong metals like adamantium. And it literally absorbs the energy and souls of its victims to empower itself. On top of that, it guards against mystic energy attacks, and incredibly, it even grants its user a state of resurrective immortality through a blood offering. No way, right? But as you can guess, all that immense power comes with a horrifying psychological cost. Just to put this into perspective, the symbiote god K'tol once said of the sword, "Its edge dulls when wielded by a chivalrous soul." And man, that brilliantly illustrates the tragic irony of this weapon. It actually thrives on the flaws and negative proclivities of imperfect wielders. If you try to be a good, honorable person, the sword literally fights you, physically. It relies on its curse to maximize its inherent power, aggressively pushing whoever's holding it straight toward madness. Which brings us to Section 3, a blood-stained lineage. Through the centuries. This terrible burden creates a really long line of tragic figures chained to this meteorite sword, and the whole shebang starts with Sir Percy of Scandia. He accepted the weight of the blade, completely knowing the terrible risks, stepping up to act as King Arthur's greatest warrior. He even played the role of an incompetent fool in his daily life just to hide his heroic alter ego. Tragically, though, he was murdered by Arthur's traitorous nephew, Mordred. He was literally stabbed in the back with an enchanted blade during the fall of Camelot. And even though Percy's ghost lives on thanks to his spell by Merlin, his sudden death left the cursed blade to pass down through a series of descendants who were just slowly corrupted by it. You can see here just how relentless the Ebony Blade's curse is across human history. It jumps from the 6th century with Sir Percy to the 12th century Crusades with Sir Eobar, right into the muddy trenches of World War I with Sir William, and down into the modern era with Nathan Garrett and Dane Whitman. It even stretches all the way to the year 2600 with Ernest Whiteham, who is fittingly known as the Last Knight. It's absolutely a generational burden. All right, Section 4. From villain to Avenger, the modern transition. So in the modern era, the Blade's legacy splits between two very different men. On one side, you have Nathan Garrett. He's an embittered biologist who actually found Percy's tomb, but was totally shunned by Percy's ghost because of his evil tendencies. Feeling spited, Garrett uses modern tech and genetic engineering to create a winged horse named Elendil, and just straight up joins the supervillain group, the Masters of Evil. But on the flip side, we have Dane Whitman, Garrett's heroic nephew. Dane steps up to redeem the legacy, uses his uncle's notes to create his own winged horse, Aragorn, and joins the Avengers. The juxtaposition here is just incredible. You've got the uncle embracing evil out of pure spite, while his nephew fights back against the sword's dark compulsion to become a true hero.
The actual way the mental passed to Dane is truly dramatic. After fighting Iron Man, a mortally wounded Nathan Garrett fell from his winged horse. As he lay dying, Garrett finally repented for his life of crime. He revealed his secret identity to his nephew, Dane, and Whitman quickly adopted the identity to restore honor to his family's name. This whole sequence of events perfectly sets up Dane Whitman's lifelong struggle, wielding a sword that constantly pushes him towards violence while trying his absolute hardest to be a noble Avenger.
And let me tell you, that struggle is absolutely exhausting. At one point, Dane Whitman even managed to purge the curse temporarily. At Doctor Strange's behest, he plunged the blade into the brazier of truth while Strange bathed them in magic fire. But of course, the curse returned when the Submariner used the sword to kill. The blade is so aggressively parasitic that the curse always seems to find a way back to him, no matter what crazy magical interventions he tries. I mean, at one point, the curse even physically turned Dane into a solid stone statue. Now, to add some truly wild comic book flavor to the mythos, there was a period back in 2006 where Dane was swinging around a totally fake blade without even knowing it. The culprit? Dracula. Yeah, Dracula replaced the real blade. The secret element that made it believable was that the fake contained a sentient vampire fang that actually altered Dane's memories. The resolution finally came when Whitman realized the truth and had to travel all the way to Wakanda just to retrieve the genuine artifact. Wild, right?
Okay, our final section. Section 5. The future of the mantle. Sharing the burden. Today, the sword doesn't just stay with Dane. We've seen the blade fall into the hands of religious zealots like Augustine Dulac, a devout Vatican agent who retrieved the weapon from an Iraqi vampire nest and used it to invade Wakanda before eventually being defeated by the Black Panther. But on a much brighter note, we also find hope in Jax Chopra. Jax is Dane Whitman's previously unknown daughter and a massive Arthurian history buff. In recent stories, she actually shares the mantle with her father to essentially split the blade's heavy psychological burden. It really proves that some curses are best fought together. So, all of this leaves us with a pretty heavy final question. Would you accept a family heirloom that granted you incredible power, knowing it would constantly compel you toward madness and violence? I really want you to take away the incredible psychological burden at the heart of this explainer. You see, the true heroism of the Black Knight isn't in his physical strength. It's in his daily, agonizing mental battle against his own weapon. It's such a fascinating lens to look at the superhero genre through. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.